Welcome back to Shy's Big New Who Rewatch, where I watch every single episode of New Who, starting with Eccleston, to celebrate the 10 years that it has been back on our screens, and aren't we so happy that it is? So if you want a shorter form of each of these episodes, then check out the TikTok. The link is below. But yeah, we are starting off with The Runaway Bride, because I wanted to add that onto season 3 rather than the end of season 2, because we already had a Christmas special in season 2, and it feels like this is very much a new era, right? It feels like this is the post-Rose era. It feels like this is sort of Ten grieving Rose, grieving the relationship that he had with her, grieving what could have been. And that's a lot of what, like, Tennant does, to be honest, in this era at least. So we are introduced to Donna because she has somehow found her way into the TARDIS, just materialized. And the Doctor's like, how? How does this happen? How is this a thing that happens, right? How have you got onto the TARDIS? No one's supposed to be able to get in here. Also, like, we're kind of in space. We're in the middle of space. So how's this happened? How? So there's the immediate dynamic duo. There just is. Like, there's just a chemistry between them that is incredible already. And, you know, it makes us sad to say goodbye to Donna at the end. But obviously, watching it back rather than as it airs is so much better because, you know, we now know that Donna is a companion for an entire season. And we know obviously about her ending and the specials and anyway. I am getting too far ahead of myself. So they have such a great chemistry. Donna's like, it's my wedding day. What the hell am I doing? Like, what is this place? But she goes very quickly from, what is this place? To, bit cold with the doors open. It's like, dude, you're in space. You're literally in space. Like, you should be like, oh my god, that is space. But no, you're like, bit cold in it. Okay, fair, as Donna does. So yeah, they're trying to find cash. They're trying to find a way to get Donna to her wedding on time, which they don't do, sadly. But, you know, Ten having to wait for anything is so funny. Like, he's doing his little kind of, you know, when little kids really need the toilet and they won't tell you they need the toilet, and you'll be like, do you need the toilet? And they'll go, no. And they'll be there, like, doing a little dance, like, doing a little wiggle. And it's like, you definitely need the toilet. Like, you're doing the wee wee dance. Like, you need it. So Ten basically does that while he's waiting to use the cash point because, of course, he does. So he's there doing that. And Donna is obviously trying to find a cab. Finds one. But it ends up having pilot fish in it. As we've already seen, we've already met pilot fish in previous Christmas episodes. Which also means that the killer Christmas trees are back in this one, which I love. Because it reminds me of Jackie, I'm going to be killed by a Christmas tree. But yeah, so they are finding their way to Donna's wedding. Donna realizes that she's been kidnapped and then has to trust the Doctor enough to jump out of this cab into the TARDIS. Also, if you were on, like, the motorway with your family traveling on Christmas and you saw the TARDIS, like, barreling down, what, like, surely there would have been much more of a stink. I think that about a lot of Doctor Who moments of, like, surely that'd at least make the paper. Surely. But then I'm from, like, quite a small town where, like, you know, oh, there's a different coloured duck in that pond there. Like, that makes news. That makes local news. So, you know, might not be that bad in London. So Donna trusts the Doctor. They sort of try and manage to get to the wedding, but they don't do it. They make it to the reception though. And then we have the iconic, you had the reception without me. Another iconic moment that I haven't mentioned, which happens before this actually, is the Doctor giving Donna this biodamper ring and saying, with this ring, I thee biodamp. And I love that line. I don't know why. I think it's the way that Tennant delivers it. But yeah, so she is biodamped so that she can't be tracked anymore by the pilot fish or whoever is piloting them. Yeah, we meet Neris. We have obviously Sylvia introduced. We have Donna's dad introduced, who obviously the actor died, so they didn't bring him back when they brought her back, but we got the lovely Wilf instead. So Donna is dealing with all of that, and her family are like yelling at her for disappearing, and it's like, bro, you saw her dematerialize, right? You saw her with your very eyes. It's not like she ran off. She didn't like do a Danhausen and do like a puff of smoke and then like fail to run away in time. Like, she disappeared in front of their eyes and nothing. Like, and they're like, oh, Donna, oh, you're so dramatic. So they try and figure out what is going on. Why is Donna filled with all of these particles? What exactly is H.C. Clements? And who is it owned by? It's owned by Torchwood. To be fair, now that Torchwood has aired at this point in the show, it's less heavy-handed with the Torchwood references, I've got to say, because season 2, every other episode, it's like, yes, Torchwood. Oh, yes, well, we know Torchwood. Oh, we are Torchwood. And it's just very, like, very heavy-handed of, like, watch our show. Please watch our show. Please watch our show. Have you watched our show yet? Watch our show. So we have had to deal with that, like, a lot. But Donna seems kind of mildly unfazed by a lot of the stuff, which is, which is cool, which is why I like Donna. She's not like, she freaks out at certain points. But we also discover that Lance is a bit of a bastard, which I think the actor who plays him plays a villain in a lot of things, so it should have been fairly obvious. We then get to see, obviously, the wonderful Empress of the Ragnos, who I love, and every so often I will just like find myself vocal stimming as the Empress of the Ragnos. Be like, Lance is funny. Like, I don't know, I just find her hilarious. Also, have you seen the actress, like, out of all of that makeup? Like, she is stunning. But yeah, so she's this big fucking spider thing, which they then try and recreate for another villain in the Jodie era, despite it being played then by the actress who plays Rani in Sarah Jane Adventures. Fun fact. Because the Who-niverse love to reuse an actor. So we then have the moment of realization for her, the fact that, Lance then gets into the deep hole. I like the Ragnos, but I kind of wish that we'd seen more of them, if I'm honest, because they embedded themselves into the Earth's crust. Like, they literally embedded themselves into the Earth's crust. And after that, we don't really hear much from them, if at all, other than, like, Big Finish and other things like that. But yeah, we don't really see much of them. Like, I love how we get, like, so much Donna lore, sort of early on, I would say. Like, this is kind of our introduction to Donna, and then, we don't need to do much of a reintroduction. I also love how her story goes, that she can't sit still. She just can't, after seeing all of this, she couldn't go back to an ordinary life. Also, just want to add, first use of the Eradicator that we then see later on in Shooty Times. But yeah, we have to say goodbye to Donna. We then have moments where, you sort of see the sadness and regret in her. This is kind of the first time we see Ten moping about Rose, which then kind of ruins Martha's whole run. Because we did have a few of these, a few moments in this episode where, people were spinning on the dance floor, and he's then brought back to, when Rose is Cassandra, but Rose isn't even Rose then, Rose is Cassandra. So yeah, like, anyway, this will be my gripe for the whole series. We can then swiftly get into Smith and Jones, which is our first Martha episode. This is the first episode where we see, like, who's going to be the new companion, who's going to replace Rose, and yeah. I love Martha as a character. I love her as a companion. I feel like the Doctor did not appreciate her. He did not at all. He didn't appreciate her. He was just, like, essentially going, Rose, He might as well have been, like, sat at a window in his pajamas with a face mask on, being like, why hasn't that boy called me? Like, yeah. Anyway, that's a really specific picture. But yeah, we meet Martha, and she is a trainee doctor. She will be a doctor when she passes all of her exams, But yeah, she's got medical knowledge, she's smart. The doctor needs to get used to having a smart companion because he's just really, really not used to it. But she works in a hospital that is then transported to the moon by a platoon of Jadoon. And that is a phrase that is then obviously said a fair few times because platoon of Jadoon on the moon. It's a funny phrase, and it's also accurate. So the Jadoon are these big rhino people with the cuntiest boots ever, can I just say. They have the best fashion sense, the Jadoon. Somehow, like, they're wearing these, like, gorgeous, like, leather pleated skirts and, like, the best stompy goth boots known to man. Like, I need to know where they got them from. Like, I need to know. So, obviously, fashion aside, they are looking for an alien. So they are scanning everybody. And when you're not an alien, they will put an X on your hand, like they're stamping your hand at a nightclub, essentially. Like when you're at a nightclub, when they're stamping your hand of like, oh yeah, you can go out to the smoking area and come back in. So this little old lady is a plasmavore. She is using her straw that she just has in her bag and doesn't wash, by the way. It just looks like a normal straw. Like the plastic straws that you would get like 100 for like a quid at Woolworths when you were a kid. You know, just normal straw. But yeah, she doesn't wash it between people, which ew. Just give it a rinse, one. Just give it a rinse. Or, you know, recycle it, get a new one. So I think it'd be a lot funnier, a lot better if she had a twisty straw. If perhaps she had one of those like whimsical little swirly straws or ones that are shaped like something. I think that'd be really, really cool. Because yeah, that just add a little bit of whimsy. Why is Doctor Who afraid of whimsy? Like, I love the Dark Doctor Who, but I also like when it's a bit silly and weird. Take the Happiness Patrol from Sylvester McCoy's era. Whimsical and stupid, but I love it. So she is drinking people's blood to then pass off as human, essentially. So she drinks of the Doctor and doesn't realize that he's not a human because he's given the whole act of, oh my god, they're rhinos and we're on the moon. Can you believe it? They're rhinos and they're Securian and we're on the moon. Oh my god. So she takes that, she drinks of him, and yeah, she then gets stopped by the Jadoon. She says something which I forgot that she said this. But they were like, oh, you are under arrest, essentially for drinking the blood of this princess. And she's like, she was asking for it with her hair and a squeaky little voice. It's like, right, okay. So because of how she looked, she was asking for it. Wow, okay, Plasmavore, consent, bitch, consent. So yeah, she gets taken away by the Jadoon. Martha then looks like she's going to get back to her like everyday real life with all of her family who have like for some reason half of them have either already been in Doctor Who or are going to be in the Whoniverse later on as different characters. Like because the mum is Sister Jat from New Earth. And then we have of course Tish, who then goes on to play Salt in The War Between the Land and the Sea, which is obviously it's canon, it's Whoniverse, it's yeah. So Martha has a family of returning actors, and she herself was her own cousin, Adiola, because she mentions that in this episode that I had a cousin and we never saw her again. But the Doctor's solution to don't go back to your normal everyday life, Martha. No, that's no fun. Is get in the TARDIS, but then. Is that not what he did to, like, get away from everything, was abandon his family and get in the TARDIS? Like, because that's kind of canon of what he did, right? So now that we have met Martha, been introduced to her, and she is having just one adventure with the Doctor, yeah, we are in Shakespeare time. We are on the Shakespeare Code, which is one of my favourite episodes of season 3. It's brilliant. It's not my favourite though. Family of Blood is my favourite. But yeah, this is a great episode. I love when the Doctor meets historical figures. Like, I love the Charles Dickens episode, obviously. I'm Quite Dead is one of my favourites. And this is a really, really good example of that. The entire time though, hard to be the bard. from Something Rotten was just in my head because this version of Shakespeare very much gives that to me. Like it's very much, yeah, that's kind of very much the vibe that he gives me is, of that Shakespeare. Of, oh, it's hard to be the bard. Oh. So yes, he very much has a thing for Martha, whereas Martha very much has a thing for the Doctor, which the scene when they're lay in bed flirting, well, she's flirting with him, and he's just going, well, the witches, and how do they do it? Oh, it's witchcraft, but it can't be witchcraft. It can't possibly be witchcraft. Like, it, I can't say that that isn't a familiar thing, because there have been times where, like, people have been trying to flirt with me and I've just been like, oh yes, special interest. Oh yes, well actually, when you go to this part in Kingdom Hearts, you get this particular Keyblade. Or I've been going on like, well actually, if you see in these scenes, Matthew Lillard was actually in the background of this Scream 2 scene where he shouldn't have been because Stu Marker's dead. Or is he? Like, yeah, because I'm a very passionate person and the Doctor gives me autism vibes. I can't lie. He's at least a tiny bit neurodivergent, just has to be. So they're trying to figure out where the witches have come from because they are cursing everyone. They've killed people. They have done some very, very bad things. Can I just say about the witches as well? I love the character design. I love that they went with classic witches, like the hook nose, the wrinkly skin, the kind of gnasher teeth. I love that they went with all of that. I think that that's brilliant. I think that, yeah, I think it's a brilliant design. I also like how Lilith can transform from that to then kind of a younger woman who can then kind of flip between Shakespeare's house and the globe and just be everywhere, right? Because, she's a attractive young woman, so why is she not going to be let in places? So yeah, I love that. I also love the names of them. Obviously, I've already mentioned Lilith, but Doomfinger and Blood Tide. I think those are brilliant, brilliant names. Can you imagine walking into a room and going, "Oh yeah, what's your name? Blood Tide," or Doomfinger? People would look at you like you're nuts, but I think that'd make you badass, to be honest. But yeah, so the Doctor is able to name them as Carrionites. But that sadly only works once. The naming thing only works once, but it doesn't work as well on Martha because Martha is out of her time. But with Martha being out of her time, it brings up the question, and she asks it of, well, am I not going to be carted off? Because, I'm not exactly white, am I? Which, this is the first time the Doctor's even had to think about that, really, because this is his first companion of colour. This is his very, very first companion of colour, if you're not counting Mickey. Because with Mickey didn't really go anywhere. He went to a parallel universe that was basically his own. And then he wasn't really too involved in the Girl in the Fireplace, except for on the actual ship. Really. Yeah, and then he didn't really go anywhere else. He very much stayed either in the TARDIS, on the estate. He was sheltered, our Mickey, so he never had to think about that. But yeah, Martha obviously experiences a lot different to what other companions have. But yeah, I think the Doctor needs to get used to having a smart companion because she asks the right questions. She asks questions. She's like, well, how does it work? How does the TARDIS work? Whereas he's used to just having Rose go, oh yeah, Doctor, and smiling and flirting with him. But this is again another downfall of this series is that the Doctor is way too hung up on Rose still, and that he wasn't ready to have a new companion. And Martha just became his rebound, sadly. But Shakespeare figures out with the Doctor everything that's going on, and they manage to stop the witches. Not before Super Hans has a chance to be like, oh yes, the witches. I know that obviously Super Hans is not his name is Matt King, but he will always be Super Hans to me. Perhaps this was after he had run to Windsor or had some Moorish crack. We can now get on to my least favourite of this chunk of episodes. So this is Gridlock, one that I was kind of not dreading necessarily, but one that I wasn't all too happy about getting into. because realistically, it's the weakest of like these few episodes. It is just one big traffic jam. Let's be real, it is one big traffic jam. So the Doctor and Martha, on their next adventure, decide to go to New York, which is the Doctor just trying to, like, reclaim his glory days with Rose. It's kind of like when your partner takes you to like all of the places that they have been with like exes or on dates and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, okay, you're just trying to like make the same memories with a different person. That's kind of weird, bro. That is kind of that needs to be studied. The Doctor needs to be studied. And just giving a little pat and like, it's okay, bro, you can do different things with different people. But this is a very different experience to when he was with Rose, because they're in the Undercity. They are in this little area with traders, kind of like this little market area, where people are trying to sell them emotions. They're trying to sell them like a happiness patch, a sadness patch, an anger patch. And then a girl comes and wants a forget patch. She wants to forget her parents who have gone onto the motorway and never have returned. Because people don't just go onto the motorway and come back. They just don't. People come onto the motorway and never ever come off. They can be on the motorway for years. So the Doctor wants to figure out what is going on there. But Martha gets kidnapped by Annie from Being Human, which also, side note, she is obviously the first of the Being Human trio to be on Doctor Who. And then Russell Tovey is in it as two different people. Aidan Turner is the only one that hasn't done it. And I think that's bad. I feel like if you're a British actor, you should just do Doctor Who. I feel like it should be written in your contract when you become a British actor that you need to do Doctor Who or else. I feel like that's just how it needs to be, if I'm honest. Because yeah, I feel like he'd make a good villain. I feel like Aidan Turner would make a good Doctor Who villain. Anyway, we're not talking about him, we're talking about Annie. So her and her fella kidnap Martha because they want to go in the carpool lane, essentially. They want to go in the fast lane so they can get to where they're going in 6 years rather than in, I don't know how many years it'll take. So some people have never been off the motorway, as is the case for Brannigan's children. So the Doctor goes to look for Martha, gets overcome by the smoke, and is taken into a car by Brannigan and his wife, who have had kittens in the back. They're children of the motorway. They have never been away from the motorway. And so the Doctor's like, oh, okay, so you've been on the motorway for 2 months. And he's like, do you think I'm a teenager? Like, no. We've been on the motorway for like 12 years. Like, we started off as newlyweds and we spent the entire time here. So people literally spend years and years on this motorway, moving inches, if anything. And, no one knows any different. Really. They've been stuck in their cars. They've built lives in their cars. They don't stop. They stock up on all of these things within their cars. So the Doctor's like, right, I need to know where this person is. Like, have you got any contacts who you can phone? Brannigan phones these two women who he refers to as sisters. They're like, we're literally wives. Like, what are you doing? We are literally wives. And he's like, oh, no, none of that new age talk. I'm an old-fashioned cat. Right. So your wife can pop out kittens. Your human wife can pop out kittens, and that's fine. But these two grannies can't be lesbians. No. Bad Brannigan. Bad Ardal O'Hanlon. Stop it. Like, lesbians are the most valid. Stop it. So the Doctor then starts to pass through cars, trying to find Martha, trying to find any kind of remnants that she is still alive. Meanwhile, Martha is in the fast lane, being attacked by giant crabs. Because that's what's underneath the smoke, is these big, massive crabs that are just attacking people for whatever reason. And that's the reason that people just disappear on the motorway. But in the meantime, Novice Haim comes to find the Doctor. The Doctor hugs her and then immediately rescinds the hug because he's like, no, last time I saw you, you were experimenting on people. So no, naughty, you don't get no hugs no more. No. She then teleports him to the Senate to see the face of Bo and to find out that everyone's dead. Everyone has died, and it's like, right, brilliant. There's just skeletons in the Senate. Amazing. Because apparently they all had drugs. They all took a drug. They took bliss, and within 7 minutes, kaboom, no more Senate. And the people on the motorway were actually saved. They were saved. They're the ones that are still alive. No one in the towns above is apparently alive anymore, which is kind of worrying. But then we do get the lovely face of Bo interaction where he's like, "You are not alone," which I love, but I don't really understand why the face of Bo needed to be shoehorned into this episode. I don't know why this episode needs to happen, but I feel it feels like the face of Bo was very much shoehorned in because you don't see him except for at the beginning and at the end. That is when you see the face of Bo. You see Novice Haim at the beginning, you don't see her for ages, and then all of a sudden she pops up with a gun. I don't know, it just feels like shoehorned into me. But that's just... So we've gotten to the end of that 4 episode chunk, and we will be moving on to the Daleks in Manhattan 2-parter, which I love those episodes. I think they're really, really cool. And then obviously we go on to like Family of Blood and to Blink and just loads of amazing episodes in season 3. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this rewatch, and if you are too, then watch this, watch the TikToks. And if you like any other nerdy shit, I can definitely talk more nerdy shit on here. I am trying to upload longer form videos everywhere because, yeah, I like to chat, I like to yap. And if you like a weird little chaos goblin who talks about nerdy shit, then I'm your gal.